So most people are available already. Hello and welcome to our webinar about GAMS MIRO Engine, which is our brand new solution for running GAMS jobs in the cloud. My name is Stefan Mann and I'll be moderating this event. Our speaker today is Hamdi Burak-Uso, who's our resident expert when it comes to distributed systems. So with that, I would like to hand over to Burak and I hope you will enjoy this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you for your kind introduction. And hello everyone, today we are going to talk about GAMS MIRO Engine, your gateway to run GAMS in the cloud. And I want to start with my agenda today, and I'm going to start with what is GAMS MIRO Engine, and then I will go with how you can use GAMS MIRO desktop version, which hopefully that you are all familiar with Engine. And normally in the MIRO desktop version, you had the option to use the MIRO desktop version with a local installation of GAMS. We extended it. Right now you can also use it with the engine. I'm going to talk about that. And then I'm going to talk about what can you do with the engine? What are the capabilities of the engine? And after that, I'm going to continue and I'm going to talk about how you can use Engine UI. And Engine UI is a user interface that is specifically developed for the engine. And I'm going to present you how you can use that to post job and get the results, and how you can use that to limit the activities of your user. Then I'm going to finish my talk with how to use Python to post jobs. Right, let us begin. So what is GAMS MIRO Engine? And before answering this question, I'd like to take you back to pre-engine times. And what was the means of running GAMS? What was the ways of running GAMS? And probably you're all familiar with the GAMS Studio. GAMS Studio is probably the most popular way of running GAMS. And after that, you can use GAMS MIRO desktop version. And MIRO desktop version requires a local GAMS installation, and you can do that. And in addition to that, you can use object-oriented GAMS APIs. These are all previous ways of running GAMS. But sorry, running GAMS locally kind of limits your computing power, and it really doesn't scale up easily. So imagine that you have to run hundreds of jobs. So what you have to do is you have to click one, wait, click one, wait, click one, wait, and probably you're not going to be able to run all of them at the same time because you are limited with your PC power. What if there is a way to run GAMS remotely in the cloud and move the heavy computation away from your local PC to cloud? So you would provide this job information to cloud, and cloud would take it, and then cloud would make the calculations and whatnot, provide the result back to you. So I said this job information, and let me describe a job because right now it's not so clear. So what is a job? Imagine the GAMS Studio is open and your favorite problem, transport.gms, is there. And a job is actually what happens when you click run. More precisely, a job is execution of a GMS file from beginning to end. And we don't care how many solve statements that GMS file has. It can have 5 solve statements, 500 solve statements. We don't care. It can call external programs. It can import anything. But for us, one GMS file is one job. So given that, then what is job information? And while explaining that, I want to refer to some very similar product, NeoSolver. For example, for the NeoSolver, you have 3 inputs. The first one is model data, and model data is basically the place where you provide your GAMS file, and in the GAMS file, you describe your problem. You have options file. It is for the stuff, for the solver specific stuff and stuff like that. And you have the GDX file, and GDX file is the input file. So in the GAMS engine, we took a different approach. We say, put everything required for the model in a zip file and provide us the name of the main GMS file. And this is the easy description of the job information. But what you can also do is you can separate your data into 2 pieces. And the first piece would be model and static data, and the second piece would be additional and dynamic data. And I want to clarify it with an example. So this model, that static data, imagine that you have a problem, and in this problem that you are assigning engineers to tasks. And when you are assigning engineers to tasks, for a given point of time, the skills of engineers are fixed, so it's not going to change. And also your problem is not going to change. But what can change between 2 rounds is your forecast for the next year. Maybe you have like an optimistic forecast, you have pessimistic forecast and whatnot. So you want to keep first 2 files static and then the last 2 files, for example, dynamic. So if you somehow can separate your files like that, I'm going to also talk about one benefit of doing that, and that will be in our next slides. So if I just go back to cloud, where I just give this job information, you might ask, what's inside cloud? And basically my answer would be that, to that would be GAMS worker. And what is GAMS worker? So GAMS worker is a logical unit that runs your GAMS job and gives your result back. And I believe it is kind of easier to understand in the light of the servers. So imagine you have 3 servers, and in the first server, you are running 2 GAMS workers. But it really means that that machine can solve 2 GAMS jobs at a time. But in the second and the third server, you are running only 1 GAMS worker, and what it really means is that it can only solve 1 job at a time. And we are heavily using Kubernetes, and it means that you can scale up and down. So when there's more demand, you can just get new servers. And when you don't need that servers, you can just free them away thanks to Kubernetes technology. And this here, what GAMS MIRO Engine is in a nutshell. And you can ask me like, how can I access to that? And I want to say that the GAMS MIRO Engine has a very rich client list. So I want to start with the Miro desktop version. Normally Miro desktop version was only running with a local GAMS installation, but we extended that. So now you can use the Miro desktop version also with Engine. And Miro server, I guess it's not released yet, but it's also using the Miro Engine as the backend. And just for the Miro Engine, we developed a web user interface. So you can use this web user interface to post jobs, get their results, register models, register users, and whatnot. GAMS Studio right now doesn't have a link to Engine, but it's also planned that GAMS Studio is going to develop a link to Engine. And you can use the other clients. So you are not only limited to GAMS products, you can use your favorite programming language, Java, JavaScript, and whatnot. And I want to actually emphasize on that part. In Engine, we follow some specification called OpenAPI 2.0. What it really means for you is that developing a client for Engine is actually fairly simple. So in Engine, for example, if you want to develop a Python client, since we are following the specification, everything is super simple. And furthermore, there are some auto-generated clients. We can provide you an auto-generated Python clients, and you can just add on it. And the second remark I want to make is the Engine UI. Engine UI is a React app, and it's planned to be open source. So you can study this, you can see how it's working. If you want to make some bug fixes and whatnot, you can do it also. You are free to change anything you like. So let's stop talking and make an example. And here I want to show you Miro desktop version, which was normally running with the local GAMS installation, how you can use it with that engine, all right? So here my Miro is open as always. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go File and Preferences. And here there's this option, Execution of Models on the GAMS MIRO Engine. And I'm going to open this. And I'm going to launch my TSP. Sorry. So when my model is launched, it's going to ask me the URL of the GAMS remote solver, which is Engine. It's going to ask me a username, password, and namespace. So in GAMS, we already set up a trial server. So my username is webinar. And namespace, I will mention what the namespace is in the following slides, but for now, I'm going to use the global namespace. So after I logged in, as you can realize, nothing has changed. I still have the tabs that I normally would have. And in the output, I still have the output of the previous run and whatnot. And I want to try to run this. So actually, when you run this, you can see model queued and stuff like that that you normally wouldn't see. But you can see the logs as if it's a normal GAMS job that's running on your local machine, but it actually didn't run on my local machine. It ran on a GAMS server. So here you can see it is running on the server, and at the same time, the logs are available to user. And I can also get the other kinds of logs. And this is how actually you kind of set your Miro desktop version to work with Engine. There is no additional thing that you have to do. It just works with Engine out of the box. So right now, it wouldn't be a problem if I didn't have GAMS installed on my local PC. And with that being said, I just want to go back to my presentation. Yes. So what can you do with it? The first thing that you can do is, as I already showed you, you can post and follow jobs. And when you post job, the place you talk is called gateway, and it's actually REST API, but if you don't know what it means, it's no problem. So you talk to this gateway, and it is just going to assign your job to a free worker. And you can also say, hey, solve pick stock for me, and it will assign it to the next free worker. But when there is no free worker and you make a request, it's going to just take it to a queue. So you don't have to go and check every time if there's a free worker or not. You can just make your request, and when there is a free worker, it will just take your job and solve it. So this is also another value that GAMS provides for you. And also with this situation, you can move the heavy computation to servers, and your computer would be usable for the other tasks. And I already mentioned to you this job information. And in this job information, we had this model static data and additional dynamic data. And you can ask me like, why should I send something again and again if I know it's not going to change? The static part of this data, of this model is not going to change. So actually, you can register that. You can say that I want to register this assign.gms and skills.inc as a model, and I want to call it ESIGN, engineer assignment problem. And next time, when you want to solve this job, okay, instead of providing that data, you can provide the name that you assigned it previously. And in addition to that, you will most probably provide some additional and dynamic data. And this is also another value GAMS provides, engine provides. You can register and reuse your data. But let's imagine you're a big company and you want to use engine, but everyone, let's say everyone is creating new models. Somebody decided to use name portfolio. Somebody decided to use ESIGN. But when third person comes and tries to use same name, it would be a name collision because you cannot use that name. It's already been taken. In order to solve that problem, we introduced namespaces. So you can imagine namespaces as folders. This is the most convenient way to explain what a namespace is. Just think them as a folder. And in that folder, your model has to be unique. But besides all the folders, you can have the same model more than once. For example, in the legacy namespace, I can have my transport, but it doesn't kind of prevent me from having the transport in also R&D namespace. So what you can do is, in your organization, you can have namespaces for your organizational units. And in this way, when you register a model, you don't register model to a public, a common place, but you register model to a namespace. And when there's a solve request, also the person who is making that request should also say, I want to solve this model in this namespace. And namespaces are actually much more powerful than that. You can decide who is going to register models. You can decide who's going to read models, and you can decide who's going to run models. And I want you to consider this scenario. You have 3 people, and the first one is a model developer. And what model developer does is very basic. It's he or she is going to develop models. And for that, the research and development R&D namespace is the best option. So we can provide all the permissions to R&D namespace for the model developer. But the manager, imagine in this context, the job of manager is to decide if a model is mature enough or not. So if the model is well enough, the manager is going to take that model from the R&D namespace and put it into the production namespace. So for that, you can give run and read to R&D, so a manager can test it, then read it. And after that, manager can register that model to production namespace. And what you want to do is also give your customer that you are serving to run permission from the production namespace. And imagine this scenario. After a while, manager decided that it's a good idea to register that model to production namespace. So she makes the request, says register the ESIGN to production namespace. It's all good. Then customer comes and customer says, hey, I want to solve this model in the production namespace with this additional data. It's also okay. And after the model is being solved, some result is produced in the production namespace. And what if customer tries to access the ESIGN, the model file from the namespace? it's actually not allowed because your model is your intellectual property and you should be able to hide it from your customer. So even though your customers can execute your models, they actually cannot see what's inside. What they can do is they can read the result, but the careful listeners might have realized I said they cannot read the model file, but they can read the result file. So does it imply that the result file is not going to have the model? Well, answer to that is both yes or no. So what's included in the result? You provide one model data and then additional data. Everything is basically put to a single folder, and then GAMS run, and it creates some output files. And normally, if you didn't take any measures, what would happen that everything would be put in a single zip file, and that's what customer reads. And in here, you can see that our GMS file is given to customer, and that's not what we want. So engine provides a way for you to hide your GMS file, or any file actually that you like. So while registering a model to a namespace, you also have the option to say, exclude clear.gms. And what it really means is that when that model runs, I'm never going to include clear.gms in the result file. So in here, I would also have an additional step. Instead of putting everything into the zip file, what I would do is I would just put clear.gms, I would just exclude clear.gms and put rest in the zip file. And that way, you can let your customers run models and get their models back, but still they won't be able to see your model. And I talked about lots of stuff, and let's use engine UI that we developed for this, right? So we have a already running engine UI that we are hosting, and this is also for an engine that we're hosting. So when you log in, the first screen that you are going to see is the job screen. And here you can already see the TSP model that I already sent like 8 minutes ago. You can see the status is finished. And if you want to see more details about the job, what you can do is you can click here, show, sorry. And in this page, we are going to see 3 sections. The first section is about the request that you make. So your job assigned a unique token, so you can use this token in the API, but if you're using a user interface, you are never going to use that token. And you can see when it is submitted, you can see the namespace, you can see if model, name of the model, and if that model was a registered model or a temporary model. Since I used the engine, it was a temporary model. And you can see if I provided additional data here, and you can even see a sample GAMS call. It would be like the sample GAMS call if you were to run that job in your own local host. So here's my tsp.log is my standard output file name. And there's something called text entries, which I will also mention in a minute. So I just want to see my result. And when I just click it, as you can see it, because it was an engine job, this folder also has engine related stuff, but sorry, it was a Miro job. So it has also stuff related to Miro, but you can also free to just submit any job you like. So it shouldn't be just from the Miro. And here I might have a log file, and this log file is basically a text file. So it would be a very bad thing to for you to just download the whole zip file, which could be hundreds of megabytes, just to see a text entry. So that's why we have text entries. Before you run the job, you tell us, you say, hey, this tsp.log is a text entry, and I want to be able to download this separately. And when you register it like that, what you can do is you can just get that text entry. So you don't have to download whole zip file. I can just get the text entries. And I showed you how you can also here in the step, you can see your text entries. And I want to post a new job using the user interface. So I want to use global. I'm admin. I can use any namespace that I like, but and here I want to use CLAD. And here I have my CLAD.zip that contains the GMS file. And I want to provide also the data.zip. Okay. And I submit a job. And as you can see, my job is submitted. I can show it. And what happens? Oh, my bad, sorry. Let me do it again. So this is a demo server, and this demo server doesn't have the doesn't have the Cplex license, so I cannot use Cplex there. So instead, what I'm going to do is use clet, okay, with the data. But here I have advanced options, and I'm going to say, please use CBC. And as you can see here, my job is running, and I have something called stream entries. So in the stream entries, if your job is long time taking, which it will take like 17 minutes to solve this, you can see the output file in a live manner. So you don't have to wait your job to be finished. You can see your input from the CBC or the solver of your preference here. And since this is going to take a long time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come here and cancel this job, right? So what I also want to show you is that when I download this result zip, as you can suspect, the GMS file is here, but I mentioned there's a way to just prevent that from happening, and I want to show how you can do that. So I said, while registering a model, you can use restricted registration. So I'm going to just do that. I'm going to register clet, so I don't have to provide clet data with each run, but I can provide it just once. And then I'm going to tick this, filter results, and I just want to exclude. So you can either blacklist or whitelist. In this scenario, I'm going to blacklist clet.gms. So if I do that, you can see my model is registered. And if I just submit a new job using a registered model in this scenario, clet, and with my additional data and without forgetting CBC, if I do that, I will just give it a couple of seconds to see some live logs, right? It's solving, and since it's going to take a while, I'm going to just cancel that. And I'm going to download the result. So actually, when you say cancel, if the GAMS is running, it's just interrupting that so you can get the incumbent value, so best value so far. And here, you can see my GMS file is not there because I excluded this. And this is actually how you can restrict your customers from accessing your model data. And we are planning to also release a more advanced tutorial of how doing that. But for this webinar, let's keep it simple. All right. So I talked about lots of users, and one solid question would be like, okay, you talk about lots of users, but who registers the users and gives them permissions? And the answer is that admin. So when you install the Miro engine, there's only one user, and that's the admin user. So one option is that admin comes and invites everyone, but imagine that you have an organization with 10,000 people or something like that, and admin is going to invite 10,000 people. Yeah, it doesn't sound so good. So it's a tedious work. So we also provided another capability, which I will also mention with an example. Imagine you have a school, and in that case, the admin probably would be an IT person. And for a school, a namespace is a perfect fit of a class. So imagine economy class. What you can do is you can register an inviter. So what it means is that this user, as a user, also can invite other people. It's not as powerful as admin because admin basically can do anything, but this person can only invite other people with the same or the less permissions. This is the important part. For example, this teacher has all the permissions on the econ class. So this teacher can invite anyone with the same or less permissions. So it can invite Jenny, John, it can say you can run and read, you can run and read, but it cannot, for example, invite me and to another namespace because this teacher doesn't have permissions on the math namespace. Instead, what this teacher probably going to do is he or she is going to invite the assistant so they don't have to invite everyone. And this assistant, you can also paste your permissions so that this assistant is going to invite other students. And with that being said, I want to mention user roles. We have 3 user roles: admin, inviter, and normal. Like I said, inviters can invite other normal users and also inviter users. Admin can invite anyone. In this example, I didn't want to add another admin, but it's possible that you add another admin, so you can have as many admins you like. And also, I want to demonstrate that using the engine UI. So here, this user, as you can see, this is me, webinar, and I'm admin, I'm invited by GAMS. So what I'm going to do is, hidden here, yes. I'm going to invite new user. And this user is going to be an inviter. And this user is going to have all the permissions on the global name. No, not all the permissions, but read and write permissions on the global namespace. So this user won't be able to run models. So when I do that, you are going to actually see that it creates a token for me. So I can use this invitation code to register myself. And one quick note, just imagine that we have 4 sections here. I will just log out and I will just register new user. And I'm going to call Brock. Okay, that's interesting. Maybe I just copied the wrong invitation code. Let me just do it again. So I will just log in with webinar. All right, I'm going to create a new invitation. And as you can see here, there's an invitation created, but I will probably copy it also a white space or something like this. So I'm going to just do it one more time. So here, okay, I copy this, I log out. All right, something is going wrong and I don't know actually why, but this registration. So normally UUID would have 4 sections or something like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log in. I'm going to see, so you can see the other registration here. And I'm going to just delete these 2 registrations. Ah, okay. So when you present something, the likelihood of something going wrong is like 100. So what I'm going to do is, for now, I'm going to use another user. This is also some user that we use. And I'm going to use the, I guess, Burak. Yes. So here, as Burak, I don't have any role and I'm invited by GAMS. You can see that. And I'm going to open that. Hopefully, I still have my credentials here. Yes. So when I log in, you are going to see that I only have 2 tabs here. The reason of that is I'm not admin. I'm even not an inviter. And if I was an inviter, you would be able to see that I have a user's interface here, just like the admin. And I would be able to invite other people. But as a normal user, I can only do stuff that I'm allowed to do. And in this scenario, I only have permissions on the global namespace. And I remember that we had 2 namespaces. And actually, since I have only one permissions on the one namespace, I can only see the models in this namespace, but I can only download them. So I have only read permission, and most probably I have the execute permission, which I can try. And the UI is changing according to user group. So this is one way to do it. I wasn't able to show you some inviter, but I guess that's okay for our demonstration. So if I just go back to my slides, and after that, I said, I'm going to show you how can you use Python as a client, right? And I'm gonna come here, and probably you all know the pick stock. And pick stock is a model where you pick the stocks to represent Dow Jones index. And here, I'm going to use a Python file. Let me show you that too. Pickstock.py. And I'm going to download these stocks from the stock data using some third-party library. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a CSV file from that stocks. Then I'm going to create a GDX file so I can use it with GAMS. And after that, I'm going to use GAMS MIRO client. And here, as you can see, GAMS MIRO client is actually this part where you say this is auto-generated. And all I had to do is just a couple of lines, and I'm going to show you the exact line that is posting job. Here, I'm going to say create job, and I'm going to provide model, namespace, std out, file name, and model data. then it's going to create a job for me, and I'm going to have a token, then I'm going to listen to logs. So let's see if it's going to work. I'm just going to. So it's downloading the stocks. It created GDX file, it sent it to job, and it even wrote me the logs. And with the engine, it's that easy, and it has the feeling as if you are running this job from your localhost, but actually it didn't run on your localhost, it ran on the server. And here you can see the even GAMS logs. Even if I were to just probably GAMS peak stock GMS, if I were to do that, I would see the exactly same thing. Not exactly the same thing. Here you can see it has run on my computer, but here it has run on the server. But with the GAMS engine, it's super easy to just use clients. And with that being said, I'm actually, I guess, finishing my slides. Yeah. And thank you for your time. And if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Well, thank you very much, Borak. That was nice. And it's not a good live demonstration if everything goes to plan.
Absolutely.
So good job. And we do have a few questions. So the first one is, how many jobs can I submit at once?
How many jobs can you submit at once? The answer is tens of thousands. So you can submit 10,000 jobs or maybe up to 100,000, but probably it's not going to limit you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and then there's one, I think you have answered it, but maybe it wasn't quite clear. Mm-hmm. So instead of blacklisting files, can I also whitelist files that
Absolutely.
the user is able to see?
And let me just show it from the user interface. So here, when I'm adding this new model, you can say, I just want to include the clat.lst file, for example. You can whitelist the files, yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, then how many GAMS workers can I run in parallel?
So this is really up to your machine, because with engine, there's basically no limitation on that. As long as your license is okay with that, you can run as many as you want, but you probably won't want to do that because it's going to decrease your performance.
Yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm. Then how can I integrate engine in GAMS? So I guess that's sort of mm-hmm. Installation related.
So how can you integrate engine to GAMS? What you can do is actually, that also implies that you have a local GAMS installation, right? And what you can do is also use Miro desktop version. And with the Miro desktop version, it's already integrated, so you don't have to do much.
Mm-hmm. Then the question, when will the product be available? And the cost, mm-hmm. yeah. Okay.
It is in the beta version, but it is heavily stress tested. I'm not sure about the release date, but I guess we can answer that with a mail, but I'm guessing in a month or in a couple of months, something like that.
Yeah, so soon. And the second part of that question is related to cost. Maybe I'll just quickly answer that. Mm-hmm. So at the moment, the plan is to have an access fee. So if you want to use GAMS MIRO Engine, you will have to pay an access fee. For commercial customers, this will be around $8,000 US. And then for each gateway that you run, you will incur additional $2,000 cost. So for academic customers, we will waive the access fee and you only have to pay $2,000 per gateway. And in 2020, because Miro Engine is so new, we will waive the access fee for everyone. Yeah, I think that should answer that. Mm-hmm. Then are your servers physically located in Europe? I guess
that's up to you, actually.
Yeah, so I should clarify, at the moment, we are not hosting this service, but it is something that the customers should host. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our host, I mean, this one, I'm not sure where exactly it's located, but this is very much something that you can modify.
Okay, and then maybe one more. What solvers are supported by Engine?
So any solver that you can normally use with GAMS, you can also use with Engine, as long as you have the license.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and here's another one coming in. Mm-hmm. Can I use Engine UI from my smartphone or tablet?
Absolutely, absolutely. We considered this progressive web apps, I guess they are called, and we developed Engine UI, so it is progressive, so you can use your smartphone to, track your jobs and whatnot. And if you have the job data on your smartphone somehow, you can also use that to post jobs. Yeah, you can use your smartphone.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Burak. That was a great talk. Thank you, Freddie, for helping with the questions. And thank you to everyone for your attention and finding the time to join us today.
Thanks.
If you need more information about Miro Engine, just go to www.gams.com/Miro/engine. I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.